Is that because is that because it got to like, okay, I remember with pay-per-click back
Yeah.
in the day, it was $2 a click, then it was 20, then it was
Mm-hmm.
200. So are they stopping because they get too busy, a victim of their success, or because it gets too expensive and too much competition?
Um, I think it's neither of those, so to speak. I think the issue is, and again, coming back to like at the very beginning, just because you have a skill set to help someone solve a problem, right? It doesn't mean you have the skill set of a business owner.
Hello, David here with another episode of the podcast. I gotta tell you, the internet and particularly modern video platforms lend itself so well to online learning, not just to communicate, but to build a relationship with your audience, even though you're not physically there in person. Now, this has led to a tremendous rise in online practitioners and coaches. Today I'm talking to Laura Wood of the Wellness Business Hub. Laura and the team at the WHB have a tremendous amount of expertise in the area of helping coaches and online practitioners grow their businesses, and they've done it for over 15 years. I wanted to pick Laura's brain to find out about the biggest mistakes that online coaches make when they're growing their business. Now, this could be a pretty wide-ranging discussion. I don't know exactly where we're going to go today, but I'm excited for the conversation. Laura, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. I'm just going to jump right in. So, to start with, I think the Wellness Business Hub tends to work with established coaches or wellness or health practitioners. But I want to rewind it back just a little bit and take it from the beginning. Now, this might be an annoying question, but I'm going to ask it anyways.
Okay.
If someone has knowledge to share, but no audience, what's the best way to get started?
Oh, that is a big question. Okay.
I knew it was. I'm starting right there.
All right. If someone has knowledge to share but no audience, where are they going to get started? I think number one, the place we start with all of our practitioners and coaches who are new working with us would be to figure out who specifically they want to serve, meaning the ideal client they want to work with, but more importantly, the painful problem that they want to solve for them. Because in order to have a successful business, online, offline, in the service-based industry, you have to be solving a problem for somebody that is painful enough for them to want to pay to solve it. And I think that's where most new practitioners and coaches would struggle, is in figuring out, what the problem they solve is. Because let's face it, nobody wants to buy general knowledge about health and wellness. Or they do, but maybe it's for like $10 in an ebook somewhere, right? We're not running a high-level service-based transformational business on general health and wellness advice. So I think honestly that's step one always.
Well, that makes sense. That kind of leads to another question for me. Is there maybe a way of thinking about yourself that allows someone to understand their own core value? Or said simpler, how does someone know if they have value to provide to someone else?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Okay. So I think first and foremost, we as like humans in general, we tend to make it okay. We make things that we don't understand more valuable than things that we do understand. So where I think brilliant practitioners and coaches struggle here the most is in realizing the value of the knowledge that they have. So first and foremost, it's, okay, what problem have you solved for yourself? Generally speaking, most successful practitioners or coaches get into the business, into the industry, because they have personal experience. Something happened to them or a loved one or a friend that triggered their love and drive and passion for helping people, for solving a specific problem. So first and foremost, what problems have you solved for yourself? If that doesn't resonate, then what problems have you solved for friends, family, acquaintances? And you really have to sit down and brainstorm sometimes, because again, you sometimes don't see the value in the solution you provided. To you, it's just normal. Somebody's struggling with, digestion, and they're having a really hard time with certain foods or this, that, and the other. And you're like, oh, no problem. You know what? This supplement, this supplement, this supplement. Oh, and I probably would avoid this food and introduce this food. To you, that's just normal knowledge. That's every day. So you don't value it the way that somebody else who doesn't have that knowledge is going to value it. So I think that would be where I would start here.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, that's kind of how I fell into payments myself. It's not like I grew up dreaming of being a payments guy, but you kind of it just happens. But that's how I think businesses happen.
Yep.
Exactly. But you fall into it, and then
Yes.
people realize you can help them out. It happens a number of times, and maybe they see a trend and they realize, hey, I can help some other people out. So maybe then I'll ask, let's say you're a business owner, you're a practitioner, a coach, you've started helping some people out, but you're early on in the process. Where do people who have started but they're early on in their journey, where do you typically see people perhaps go wrong somehow?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So many places. How much time do we have? Let's go. So first and foremost, okay, I think the first place they tend to go wrong when they're just getting started. So they've helped some people, they have some proof of concept. They're like, okay, I can do this. I want to actually have a business, online, on the internet, help people this way. They tend to prioritize tools and tactics over like the overarching strategy. So things like, oh my gosh, which marketing platform am I going to use? And it feels like this monumental, super important decision. I mean, we know, having been in business this long, that like a marketing platform's a marketing platform. You're going to pick one, you're going to move on. But when you're new, it seems like this very big deal. And so I see, clients we work with who, when we onboard them into our programs, we'll kind of chit chat a little bit, and they'll talk about spending 6 to 8 months researching CRMs, marketing platforms, to decide which one was the best and which one was not, right? And we're going,
Right.
oh no, you didn't need to waste that time. Like, A, we could have just told you, and B, it really doesn't matter. It's just a tool, right? So I think like thinking that the tool is the one thing, or the tactic. So that's another thing, especially online. Oh my gosh, like right now we live in this economy, obviously, of like online excitement, attention, influencers, people talking about this, that, and the other. And it's really easy to start scrolling. And if you are looking to start an online business, your social media feed will become almost like an echo chamber of all of these things that you should be doing and all of this learning and this, that, and the other. And so you'll be kind of shiny object syndromed to a specific tactic. Like, if you have this one webinar funnel, you will be wildly successful. If you have this one, website, you will be wildly successful. If you have this one tool. And so they think that that's it. And then if they have the one thing, then that's just going to create the business, where again, once you've been in it for a minute, you know that a business it's the same fundamental things no matter what you're doing, online, offline. You need an offer. You need a way to deliver that offer. You need an audience, you need their attention, you need to market, and you need to sell, right? And no one thing is going to make or break that. And I think that holds so many people back at the beginning, is just the obsession over the one thing instead of the overarching, okay, what is the strategy? What is the model? And then how do I learn? Who do I learn from in order to implement this for myself?
That's really interesting. I know exactly what you mean. Even if they did spend a year researching the world's greatest CRM and they really made the right decision, they could probably do with a customer or two. Right? It seems should probably be the priority. So, okay, then I'm going to talk about the next step. So I want to talk about growing an established business. Now, my internet knowledge is super outdated, but I think it's fair to say in marketing, principles that worked 100 years ago for the most part still work today. Obviously not literally verbatim, but a lot of the psychology is the same way. And just something came to me that I wanted to ask you, which is about your existing audience. Now, boy, my internet, when I was learning about internet marketing, it would have been like early 2000s, and it was talking about email lists and your existing customers. I want to ask today, how important are your existing clients or your existing audience in terms of getting new clients? And even if you don't necessarily have a huge audience, is it still something important that you should be using somehow?
I think it's massively important. So I think for a couple of different reasons, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said like the basic core principles don't change. And they really haven't. Yes, the tactics and the strategies change, of course, but the core principles don't. And so for us, like at the Wellness Business Hub, one of our core values is client success. We put that at number one for the entire company, whether you're client facing or not client facing. If you work with us, your number one core value is client success. And the reason for that is manifold.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you describe what client success is, Laura? I just was curious what that
means. So for us, it's, are we delivering what we promise to our clients in a way that will contribute to their success, whatever they deem that to be? So if we are bringing a client into a program, a service, selling them a product, are we delivering in full integrity what we promise we're going to deliver? And so I think that ties right into what you just said. How important is your current list? Like if you become great at marketing and sales and you can convert clients, but you have zero experience in delivery and you're not able to actually get them results or do the thing you promised, you're very quickly going to have a problem, right? In terms of word of mouth, in terms of even just like your own confidence, right? No practitioner, no coach goes into this industry, this business, just like wanting to disappoint people, right? And so if you truly can't deliver, that shakes you, and then the marketing and sales go out the window. So I think from that lens, what you just asked, obviously the current audience is super important. And then also from the lens of, you will have people in your audience forever who never shop with you, who never buy from you, who never enroll with you, and that's 100% okay, right? Like that, the goal is not to convert 100% of your audience, but if you are there providing value and they're following you, paying attention to you, learning from you, they're commenting on your posts, they're sharing you, they're, referring you to family and friends, maybe even if they've never spent a dime with you. And so that then positive influence changes things dramatically for you as well, especially when you're kind of newly established and like every single, 10 impressions is a really big deal for growing the brand and growing your business.
That is, you just made me think of something. You made me connect two dots that I'd never connected before. So back in the day on the internet, web copy, it would be like at Acme Inc., we make the best widgets. We are committed to success. And nowadays it would say, John in the warehouse packs your order. The internet became a lot more personal, I think, over time. What you just made me realize, tell me if I'm correct, but in the area of experts, coaches, practitioners, it sounds like reputation and integrity are really important to uphold. Is that fair to say?
The most important thing, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, I thought so, because people are, when you're a coach or a practitioner, are you your own brand? Like, is that how you separate? Like, how connected is your personality, your persona to the business and what you're offering?
I mean, it's super connected. Really, like whether you want it to be or not, the reality is people buy from people, right? Like people trust people. And when you're working in a space where you are working with people's health or their, whether it's their physical health, their emotional health, their relationship health, in some way, shape, or form, if you're a practitioner or a coach and you're helping to solve a painful problem for somebody, it's personal, right? It's personal. And so, yes, you do become a personal brand because people need to develop that know, like, and trust before they're ever going to want to work with you in such a personal capacity. And in today's world, social media is very much well and alive. And so if you as a coach or practitioner are being researched by somebody, so somebody finds you and they're like, do I want to work with this person? Do I want to work with Laura to help me in this area of my life? Let's Google Laura. Well, what is the very first hit on Google? It's your Facebook personal page. It just is. If you don't have a ton of experience and a ton of online credentials, which most people don't for quite a while, it's your Facebook personal page. And so if they hit that page and they see, a whole bunch of like random memes and maybe some like cat videos and then some like odd comments,
right.
They're like, this person doesn't maybe seem to be what I thought they were. Whereas if they hit your page and it's like you're sharing really good advice and you're posting things relevant to the painful problem that they have and you appear warm and professional and you're very much dialed in, they're going, oh, okay. She seems to know what she's talking about. She's, she clearly has this reputation. I see people commenting. Okay, there's some trust here. I'm going to go one step deeper, right?
That is so interesting. So it's a little, isn't there a saying, how you do something is how you do everything.
Yes,
Is
how
that,
you
is
do
that
one thing. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Yeah,
That's
it
it.
totally tracks.
Okay.
Yep.
And it ties into it. I get it. Well,
Yeah.
we've been talking a lot about social media, and I'm happy to continue that conversation, but I don't want to steer it down just social media. I wanted to give you a little bit broader of a question. And there's somebody that's coming to my mind that I know. He is a coach. He was an author, one of the earlier authors about intermittent fasting. He's
Cool.
fairly prominent in the health and fitness industry. I know that he's grown to a certain point, and I know there was a time at least when I think he was stagnating a bit and not doing bad. I don't mean it bad in any way, but if you're established but stuck, I could probably come up with a better word than stuck, but if you're established and you're not taking the business where it should be, first of all, how do you even know? Is it like instinctive, or sometimes do you have clients come to you and you can see that they're not where they think they are? Like, are people even aware of what their problems are, is I guess what I'm asking.
Oh, that's so good. People generally are not aware of where their problems are. And for us, it's really simple. We are like a fully metrics-based business. We do not make a single decision based on like feelings or instinct or, just a random thought or idea. Everything is done and optimized based on metrics. So if somebody comes to us, it's really easy. Like, we start at the top. Okay, cool. What's the audience size? Meaning, what's your email list size or your follower size or whatever it is that you're measuring your audience with? What's the actual growth? How many new people did you bring in last month? Okay, we have that metric. Next is going to be your ability to connect and use messaging to get their attention. So we'll look at things like your email open rates. Like, what are the email open rates? Are you actually using language that your ideal client is interested in, is connecting with? Cool. So we can look at that. Then we're going to look at, are you running marketing events, right? Like, in some way, shape, or form, we need to give people a reason to take an action. So for us, a lot of our clients will run workshops, free workshops where people can register and they will have like a really great educational workshop, and then a call to action to connect, book a call, talk about whether moving forward and working one-to-one is a good fit. So then we're going to look at your marketing metrics in terms of events, in terms of people taking an action. And then it kind of goes down the chain. So if you enroll clients through conversation, great. How many conversations are you booking? Of those, how many people then become a client? So as we go down that kind of line, we just have like industry standard metrics that we're looking for at each point. And if at any point we're not hitting it, that's the thing we're going to focus on. So it's kind of like not exciting in the sense that we're just crunching numbers, but it's great because you get full clarity. You know exactly where the hole is. So like with your kind of acquaintance, your friend, it would have just been, okay, here's this number, this number, this number, this number. Is it audience growth? Do we need to invest in some paid lead gen ads? Is it that we're just not getting their attention and we need to like create a few new hooks? Is it that we need to convert a little bit better on the very last kind of line of this? And then we just go and work on that.
That's so interesting. And you just made me think something. When I listened to you, you're just making questions come to mind. It's such an interesting conversation.
I love it.
So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. And you have to wear a lot of hats. Mm-hmm. So if you're a coach, like you're literally talking right now about analytics and metrics and stuff like that. How many hats does a coach or a practitioner have to wear? And but even before you answer, we both acknowledge that nobody can be an expert in everything. So how do they navigate? How do you tell people how to navigate that?
Ooh, that's such a good question. Okay. So I think, at the beginning, when we work with coaches, practitioners, and they're just kind of starting out, or even maybe they're establishing and trying to grow. I mean, we're assuming they have the skill that is required to actually work with clients and transform lives and solve a problem. So we're going to assume that skill already exists, because if it doesn't, then they're likely not ready to start a business with their training. So
Right.
That skill already exists. Okay, cool. In terms of like the most important hats to wear, it's not what anybody ever thinks. The first two hats they have to learn to wear are marketing and sales hats. And those are the hardest hats to learn. Like, you have to learn how to move people with your words to take an action. That's a skill. The second skill is sales. Like, everything in life is sales. Once you realize that, it's actually quite wild. Like, everything, coaching clients is sales, right? Moving people to your point of view in your personal life, in your professional life. That's sales. Getting somebody to commit to working with you, that's sales. So you really, those two skills are the first skills. And so when we work with clients, for example, we do all of their tech for them. We run their meta ads for them. We kind of do all of the background work so that they can focus on those two key skills. Once you have those two key skills, then I think it moves a little bit in kind of different directions. I think the next skill really is likely a little bit of analytics and numbers and spreadsheets, which people hate to hear. But you do have to have at least some core understanding of what's going on in your business by the numbers. And I would include like a financial understanding as part of that, right? Like if you're gonna run a business, at some point you have to learn about a P&L, a profit loss statement. You have to learn about like net profit, and you have to learn about like gross profit, and you have to learn all of these like words you probably don't want to. And then if you have those hats, I feel like at that point, the next hat to wear is leadership, right? That's when you're growing a team, and then you have to wear the hat of actually like sitting in that leadership position and like guiding a team towards a shared goal, which is a whole new set of skills. So it's like every single level, you're just unlocking a new hat that you have to wear and learning the skills associated with it to get to the next new level.
Well, that makes sense, because if you ever stop learning, you're not going to grow. So it's just continual learning is what you're describing. And I think that's life, basically.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I have a question, and I was curious to ask you this question. I have this feeling that you probably have a lot of be sure you don't make this mistake type conversations, or conversations with clients over and over where you see a repeated mistake that you wish people wouldn't make. I'm curious if that's true, and if so, maybe you could give some advice about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think, okay, well, let's kind of start at the beginning. So mistake number one, I think anybody, practitioner, coach, like human beings in general, have this need to wait until they're ready to move forward, whether it's to get their business to the next stage, whether it's to start their business, whether it's to make that new hire. And so we have this like innate desire to just hold off. And that's because like humans, we're wired to stay the same, right? Staying the same is safe. Doing something new is not safe. That is how our brains work. So waiting until you're ready. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of conversations I have with, clients who just, at the end of a cycle of whatever we're building or doing, they say, man, I wish I had have just started this when we first talked about it 6 months ago. Like, I get it now. We always think we're going to have something different in place in 3 months, in 6 months, in 9 months. And the reality is if we don't change, and then nothing changes, and we're not waiting for anything. So I think that's like a high level mistake. I think just if we go high level again, honestly, the biggest mistake people make is unrealistic expectations in whatever stage of business they're in. And I think, this is really interesting because you can define happiness by expectations being met or unmet, right? So if what you expect to happen happens, generally you're happy. If what you expect to happen does not happen, then you're unhappy. And so we see a lot of coaches and practitioners who are like super unhappy with where they're at, and they feel like they're doing a bad job, and they're like ready to kind of just like hang in the hat and give up on it when we meet them, because they're not doing this much money a month, and they don't have an audience of this big, and they don't have, XYZ, whatever. And when you dig a little bit deeper and say, okay, well, why do you think you should have that? Or why do you think you should? They don't really have a good reason. They just expected it to be a certain way. They just thought it would work a certain way. And so I think that is a really big mistake, because people walk away and give up because they think they're not good enough. When realistically they just didn't have the right expectations. And then in terms of just like actual tactical mistakes, I would say the biggest mistake we see, especially established practitioners make, is, putting the brakes on lead generation. So lead generation, audience growth, whatever you do in any way, shape, or form, in order to continue enrolling clients, making sales, working with people, you need to continually build your audience. So if you are, running ads via Meta, which a lot of our practitioners do, that tends to be the most cost-effective way to build an audience these days. You can't let up on that, right? Like that audience growth is the number one input into the end of the day outputs for your business. And so I think that there's this common unknowing, that's what we like to call mistakes, it's not knowings, that for the entire life cycle of your business, you will need to invest in advertising, in audience growth in some way, shape, or form. And the minute you stop, the sales will start slowing down. Maybe not that month, but in month 2, 3, 4. And then by that point, you think everything's broken when really it's just that you haven't been growing your audience. So I think in terms of just a specific
But why would
mistake,
they do that, Laura? Is that because it got to okay, I remember with pay-per-click back in the day, it was $2 a click, and it was 20, then it was 200. So are they stopping because they get too busy, a victim of their success, or because it gets too expensive and too much competition?
I think it's neither of those, so to speak. I think the issue is, and again, coming back to at the very beginning, just because you have a skill set to help someone solve a problem, right? It doesn't mean you have the skill set of a business owner. And so I just think that for a lot of practitioners and coaches, they just still, even while they're doing it, even while they're enrolling clients, they assume that they should just know what to do and that running a business isn't its own skill set. And so they don't really understand the overarching strategy of everything. They just knew that they needed to run ads to build an email list in the beginning. And then they don't connect that to continuously building that list. And then the other side of it, which you kind of mentioned, is cost investment and really being able to break down, okay, if I'm spending this much money a month on ads and I'm bringing in this many clients and all my metrics line up here and then I make this much money at the end of the day, that is just a cost of doing business, right? But if you don't know that, the expectation is that that it shouldn't cost that to do business. Why does it cost that? I just want to enroll clients. So I think it's just more of a knowledge gap than anything else. And it's part of the bigger knowledge gap of, knowing that a business actually requires a very specific set of skills that has nothing to do with helping people. And you have to wear both hats at all times. And so if you don't have all the skills, that's when investing in skills, whether it's through reading, whether it's through research, whether it's through hiring an agency, whether it's through, working with a coach, it doesn't matter. Investing in the skills you need is going to prevent a lot of those high level mistakes from happening. And I think there just isn't enough knowledge around that as a normal expected thing if you are planning to start your own business.
That's so. I had this competing thought going through my mind when you were speaking just now, and it's on one side, it's the importance of continuing to learn and basically don't let your foot up off the gas, right? On the other side, it's the treadmill, because you don't want to be sprinting until you're 90 years old. There's some sort of balance to it. Of course, this is not even asking a question right now. I'm just thinking aloud right here. But how do people then? Well, okay. Here's a question. How do people know if they're working hard enough?
Ooh, that's a really, really tough question to answer. So honestly, most of the time people are working too hard, but on the things that don't matter, the things that don't actually move the needle, right? So again, going back to what we first talked about, you tend to overvalue skills you don't have. So if we're talking about a business on the internet, you're going to help people on the internet, which is super cool and amazing that we have the technology to do this. And you're not a techie person, you are going to spend tens of hundreds of hours over the course of, a year or 2 years, just trying to acquire these tech skills because you think you need them. Meanwhile, you can hire them out for, very inexpensive rates for contractors to come in and help you with. Right. So I think it's not so much most of the people we work with work very hard. But the way that we tie back to the key focus is does what you're working on have a direct tie to either acquiring leads, marketing to those leads, or turning those leads into clients, or delivering to your clients? Those are the areas that actually matter when it comes to putting in work when you're starting a business. And if it ties directly into one of those things,
Right.
great. If you're out there, fiddling with your website page for 7 hours a day, 3 days a week, and you don't actually get clients from your website, then that's a problem, and that's working too hard on things that don't move the needle. That would be kind of what we would define it as, I think.
That's interesting. And what you made me think is, even for myself, my own business, remember to value your own time and invest it where it matters. I was just
Yes.
going through, it's just a silly thing, but I was trying to get approval for like some Bitcoin thing, and there's all these KYC documents, and I'm going through it, and it's like, I probably have about 500 things that I could be doing right now that's more important than this. And it's like, value your time, put it where it matters. That's
For
probably
sure.
great advice. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to pick your brain with a question that I draw upon from my own business. So I work in a dry industry. I'm not afraid to talk about it. Nobody's super excited about payment processing. It's like an air conditioner. If it's working, you're not thinking about it, right? Like
Right.
that's what you want. So I'm kind of wondering, how important is the nature of your topic of expertise when it comes to marketing your business? Like, said differently, if I could have a button on the side of my bed that I could press when I go to sleep and wake up with a six-pack, I would press that button. It'd be wonderful. A lot of people would buy that button, they'd press it, that would get lots of impressions, okay?
Yeah.
But compare that to maybe you have a thing where if you eat spicy food, you get acid reflux. Now it's topical, but it's not broadly appealing, especially if you don't have acid reflux. So how do you market a business that has less broad public appeal, maybe even a narrow one? And the question really is, do you have to take a very different approach, or is it surprisingly similar no matter the nature of your content or your area of expertise?
Okay, that's such a good question. So I think, well, first and foremost, the easiest way to get started, and this is what we do with all of our clients, is we create lead generation assets. So what we want to do is actually not speak to everybody, because that is really hard to do and you disappear into the crowd and nobody cares. We want to speak directly to the people that are actively looking for support in what we do. So for you, it would be people who are either needing to acquire a new merchant, or need to acquire their first merchant, or are moving, or whatever. For the acid reflux, it's obviously people who suffer from that. So in that scenario, we would have our clients create what we call a lead magnet. So a lead magnet is a piece of content that solves a problem that is associated with the bigger problem that you solve. So we're not going to try to solve acid reflux in like a simple little PDF 3-page document, but we might be able to give, people who suffer from this 3 quick acting tips to help it go away faster when it strikes, right? So we're going to create a piece of content that is really interesting to only our ideal client. And then we're going to use that piece of content to move our ideal client onto our owned assets. So our email list, our social media platforms, whether we're going to use paid meta ads to find them, whether we're going to, go into like public forums, whether we're going to just personally advertise it at the beginning, it really doesn't matter. The goal is to put this piece of content out there and be like, okay, I made this thing. I'm so excited about it. If it's something that's going to be helpful for you, I'm going to give it to you for free. Here's the page. Just pop your email address in there, hit submit. I'm going to email it over to you right away. Right? And so if you're doing that, everybody who opts in is your ideal client. They have the problem that you solve. Great. Now you have this little like community on the internet, whether it's through your email list, through a social media platform, it doesn't matter, that thinks everything you say is really interesting, right? So instead of this like boring topic that everyone else is like, I don't care about this, everyone you have is like, oh my goodness, tell me more. Tell me more. And you get to build that like know, like, trust, and engage. You've already given them a quick win with that piece of content, so they're already bought into you and your authority. And then you can continue working with this kind of list audience of people to move them into becoming, clients and your like biggest supporters, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. That's also been my personal experience, so I can relate to what you just said there. Now, one of the things you talk about a lot is lists, and I will tell you that my expertise in marketing, my knowledge of marketing falls apart where we hit social media. Okay, I'm not an expert in social media, and I was going to ask, especially around practitioners, coaches, is social media, do you live and die through social media, or like, as you talk about the list, how do you build that business? What are the most important components that you have to be using to have a successful business in that space?
Yeah, for sure. So we don't live and die by social media for one reason, which is it's leased land. So you don't own your social media profiles, right? So you can build this amazing, wonderful following of 100,000 people on Instagram who are all your ideal client. And Instagram can be like, actually, we don't really like what you're putting out there. We're just going to shut down your account. And you literally have no control over that happening, which is terrifying. So we are very strategic and we very much teach our clients to build a list. So we are always going to focus on collecting email addresses. So we own the ability to contact the people that are on our list. So like first and foremost, my advice is always to focus on building something that you own. And then we have social media, which is still super important, but that is kind of in tandem to the list. So we get somebody on the list and then we say, hey, you know what? Hang out with me over on Instagram. I'm on there a ton. I provide a ton of like great value and we have a really fun time. And I have this little, private channel if you want to join it or whatever the case may be. And then so we're using social media to connect, to get in front of people. It's amazing because social media is free. And if you can build that community, you're able to really connect and move forward with people that way. But I still think at the end of the day, you said this at the very beginning, the strategies and the principles of like business growth haven't really changed in the past 20 years. And I firmly believe that we need to build a list of people that like we own, that is a business asset that we can market to. And then we can utilize the tools that now exist that make it even easier to get in front of people, like social media, kind of in tandem to that. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Well, it totally makes sense because, for example, I have heard of people that have YouTube channels and they might have 2 million subscribers and they post something that's against YouTube's terms of service for whatever it is, and then they lose their entire audience, which I guess could happen to anybody. So if you're your own brand and you own your not own, but you have direct access to your clients that can't be taken from you, that is basically building your business on concrete. Otherwise, you're on quicksand, potentially.
100%. 100%. Yep. Great analogy.
That makes sense to me. So I tend to ask this question towards the end of my podcast, and it's such a broad question. You can go anywhere with this. You're allowed to take a second to think about it if you want. It's not like the world's most profound question, but I find that I get really interesting answers. So if you had a young family member that was starting a business, not necessarily in your space, could be any type of business. I want this to be broad. If you had one piece of advice to share with a family member that's starting a business, what would you tell them?
Oh, one piece of advice. Okay, so this is coming into my head, so I'm going to go with it. I might not agree with it next week, but this is what I'm going to go with this week.
Let's see what you have. I'm interested.
It is that you need to know and remember every single day that you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know what you don't know, you don't even know the right questions to ask half the time. So if that is true, you have two choices. You can either acquire the skills to build a business, learn how to build a business on your own through research, reading, all of that good stuff, which is a massive undertaking. Or you can hire somebody who has done exactly what you want to do, and you can pay them to teach you how to do it. I always prefer the latter because I am a person who very much values time and fast action. But you don't know what you don't know. So if you don't know what you don't know and you've never done something before, do not expect to be able to do it right out of the gate by yourself because you don't know. So either learn it or pay somebody to teach you. And that's really the only way that you're going to be successful in any way, shape, or form right out the gate.
I actually think that's really fantastic advice. And if you were to do it on your own, it's definitely going to involve two things that come to mind, which is time and suffering. Because if you don't know the right questions, you're going to bounce off the wrong answers until you land where you need to go. So no, that is fantastic advice, Laura.
Thanks.
Now, I'm hoping you could take a moment to tell people a little bit about yourself, where people can contact you, and the Wellness Business Hub.
Yeah. So as we kind of talked about at the beginning, we at the Wellness Business Hub work with practitioners and coaches, and we do kind of full stack business development. So either start right from the beginning with an idea. And help you develop that through like your niche, your lead generation, enrollment, marketing, sales, and of course offer, which is super fun. We work really closely with clients there. We have lots of other like programs and products. You can find us in many different places. Instagram is probably the most fun. And so the handle there is actually my business partner's handle. It's at Lori Kennedy Inc. And that is where we kind of publish a ton of free content, of course. And if you want to email us, you can email support@thewbh.com. We have a fantastic team who monitor that inbox and can basically help guide you with anything that you want.
Laura, it has been an absolutely fantastic discussion. It really was, and I really want to thank you for joining today.
You are so welcome. Thanks for having me. This was fun. I always love chatting nerdy business things and seeing where it goes.